to good friends, the ones we hold dear, the ones who will tell us what we need to hear, the ones who love us right or wrong, and to all those good friends that give you this song.
Hello again, good friends, and welcome back to The Last Walk. Remember when? We're going back in time to the good times of your life. And today, we're going to visit back to some of our childhood heroes. And maybe they're still heroes. So, close your eyes, get ready, but before you do, go to your refrigerator, open up that ice chest, take out a Bonamo Turkish taffy. It's frozen, so throw it on the ground, crack it into tiny little pieces. Open the refrigerator door, take out a cool, refreshing bottle of Yoo-Hoo, and turn on your lava lamp, sit down on your Castro convertible recliner, and close those eyes. We're going back in time. The Last Walk is back.
Oh, I've been so lucky and I've been so blessed. In spite of my failings, I've found success.
This got me thinking about childhood heroes. Recently, we saw the passing of the great Muhammad Ali. When we were kids, he was Cassius Clay. Changed his name to Muhammad Ali. Remember, as a little boy, in high school, I once took a shot. I was not a good basketball player by no means, but I think in freshman or sophomore year, we had an intramural game, and I took a really long shot, about 25, 30 feet away. For me, it was long, and I swished it. Put my hands up in the air, yelling and screaming, "I am the greatest! I am the greatest!" All because that's what one Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, always said. The guy went from being questionable to tremendous to great to an incredible, amazing human being, and we all cherish the memory and what he did for humanity. An incredible man. I never met Muhammad Ali, but wished I did. Ironically, the same period of time that Muhammad Ali passed away, another great passed away named Gordie Howe, who was an incredible, strong leader, man, the king of hockey for many, many years. Had all the records until Wayne Gretzky came along and took away a lot of them, but not all of them. I was fortunate to meet Gordie in one of my jobs with Emory Air Freight years ago. He was our corporate spokesman. And he would go around the country visiting different offices, and you would take him on sales calls. I met him on the ice. He would punch me in the arm and say, "This is what it feels like when you played hockey." But a really nice, nice man. Took a picture of me. It's on my wall in my office as I speak. I'm looking at it right now. A super nice gentleman. Our deal was to supposedly bring him into customers. I had one client that was a major, major customer. The gentleman was not from America. He was from the Mideast. And I went to him. I said, "I'd like to bring in Gordie Howe to meet you and your staff." So he said to me, "Who's Gordie Howe?" I said, "He's the all-time best player in hockey." I said, "He's like the Babe Ruth of hockey." So he said to me, "Who's Babe Ruth?" I knew it wouldn't work. My biggest hero was number 7, the Mickey Mantle. I think I shared that heroism for one man with probably 1 million, 10 million, 50 million little boys and girls around the country because they were always on TV in the World Series. Everyone knew the Mick and his tremendous ability to hit, play, catch, run, and play the baseball game. I always wanted to meet the Mick and never did until years later when he had long since retired. I was with my wife and our 4 kids. Just came back from a ride on a Circle Line boat cruise around Manhattan Island. We were walking along Central Park South, and then some woman walked out the front door of the restaurant and had a look on her face of sheer joy, an elderly woman. She was holding a paper in her hand, and she was so pumped up. So I said to her, are you okay? She said, "He's there, he's there, he's there." So I said, "Who's there?" She said, Mickey Mantle's in the restaurant. He's there." I looked at my wife. My wife knew what I wanted to do. She stayed back with our daughter in the stroller. I took my 3 boys in who were probably 6, 8, and 10 years of age. We went into the restaurant, stood by the maitre d', the main front entranceway. Woman said, "May I help you?" I said, "We're here to see Mickey Mantle." She said, "Well, I'm sorry, he's busy right now, but can I get you a table?" I said, "No, I just want to meet Mickey Mantle, myself and my boys." said, well, it's very nice, but I'm sorry, he's busy. He has a meeting going on. He really can't meet people, but we can give you a table. I said, I appreciate it, but I'd really rather meet Mickey Mantle. I stood there, I wouldn't leave. With that, some woman came over who worked there, about maybe 10 minutes later, saw us and felt bad for us. So the three boys with their hats on and me and going crazy. And she whispered to me, said, he's in the back. Just walk, don't make a scene. He's with some people doing a business deal. Just walk over to him. When he sees your boys, he'll probably talk to you. I looked at my kids. They looked at me. I said, guys, we're going to meet the Mick. We go in the back. He's sitting in a booth. He has three men in front of him, and he's by himself on the other side of the booth. He looked up, saw my three sons, saw me, smiled, and I was like pumped. This is Mickey Mantle. He was doing some movie deal for players who hit 500 or more home runs, supposedly. He saw my son Jim, who was then 10, and said, what's your name, son? Jim went, Jimmy. So he took out a pen, had a card, and he wrote on the card to Jimmy, all the best, Mickey Mantle. He went to Kevin, what's your name, son? Kevin said Kevin. Wrote down to Kevin, all the best, Mickey Mantle. To Ryan said Ryan, all the best, Mickey Mantle, Ryan. I reached out my hand. He shook my hand, and I said, my name is Ron. He didn't give me a card, didn't give me a pen, just basically said, pleased to meet you, Ron. And I knew, in other words, keep it going. So I was pumped, and I said to him, I'm thrilled to finally meet you. He said, thank you very much, and we walked out. I was in heaven. My kids all held their cards, walking out of the restaurant the same way that elderly woman did about half an hour earlier. We met the Mick.
Oh, I've been so lucky and I've been so blessed. In spite of my failings, I've found success.
Before we had Gordie Howe as our spokesman, we had the luxury of having Roger Staubach as our spokesman. And I was given the chance to spend a day with Roger. American Express was one of my accounts, and the company wanted to have Roger meet the CEO of American Express. So when I told my client, my contact at American Express, we wanted to bring Roger Staubach in, he was pumped. He got the CEO, James Robinson, I believe the third, to agree to meet us. I met Roger at JFK. We took a helicopter ride from JFK to downtown Wall Street. A limousine met us, took us over to American Express. He sat down with the gentleman, the CEO, had a very nice meeting. I was with our VP and his marketing people. Along the way, Roger and I had a great chat in the car, and we spoke about the Army-Navy game of, I think, 1962-63. My brother Jerry was a real big aficionado of West Point. He wanted to go there so badly. Almost went there. He was the first alternate from Representative Stephen Deronian back in the 60s. But we loved watching the Army-Navy game, and it's still a big thing in our family. Well, that year, Rollie Stitchway was a quarterback of Army. Rollie was from our hometown, Williston Park, and went to Mineola High School. And he was playing against the great Roger Staubach. And I believe, if memory serves me right, Rollie won the game. Maybe I'm wrong, but in our mind, he won the game. So years later, I rolled the tape. I'm on the helicopter ride with Roger, and I mentioned the game to him. And Roger starts telling me about his friendship with Rollie Stitchway, how it went back all those years. I was like, I'm with someone who was my hero I didn't know, and someone who is my hero who I knew of. You can't make up these memories. They're great. Who was your hero as a kid? Who did you always want to meet and finally had a chance to do so? My friends and I were out cruising the city before we were married, before we met our wives. We were running around Manhattan doing our Friday, Saturday night, whatever it might be we did. And we ended up in a bar called P.J. Clark's. P.J. Clark's is very, very famous for having movie stars, politicians, whatever it might be, go to this restaurant back in the 70s, early 70s, and late 60s, probably still to this day. So we had to go to the bathroom. So my friend Ray came out of the bathroom first, and he started walking straight to the door. And as he's walking, Ray's about 5'7". He walked right into this tall man in a white suit. And Ray looked up and said, "Excuse me." The tall man looked down at him and said, Sorry, son. Ray looked up and said, You're Clyde. It was Walt Clyde Frazier. Whoa. We walk outside. There's Clyde's white Rolls Royce in front of the restaurant. I met another NBA great about 15, 20 years later, waiting for my luggage at JFK Airport. I'm standing around the rack waiting for my luggage to turn south for the luggage to come back. And who do I see standing there? A really tall man. It was Bill Walton, who was then the NBC color man for the NBA games. So I walked over to Bill Walton, and I picked up my phone. I dialed home, and I knew my son Kevin loved this guy. He loved watching him on TV and loved the way he did his color commentary. So I said to him, Bill, my name's Ron. I have my son Kevin on the phone, and I think he would be thrilled if you could just say hello to him. Bill looked at me like I had three heads, but took the phone quickly, put it to his head, and started walking all around the terminal, talking to my son Kevin. Kevin said later on he thought it was just Dad making a joke. Then he realized it was really Bill Walton. Bill must have spent about 5 to 10 minutes on the phone with Kevin, chatting with him. It gets better. He hangs up. I leave. He leaves. I go out to the parking lot trying to find my car. Who comes along in a car with all his people but Bill Walton says, Hey, Ron, you trying to find your car? I need a ride? And I said, Thanks, Bill, but I found it. Cool guy, Bill Walton. It must have been around 1973. My territory was the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I walked into a building on Madison Avenue. It may have been 509 Madison. I go in the elevator. The door opens up, and I stand there, and a woman comes walking towards the elevator door. I watch her coming in, and I look up at her, and I said, That's Jackie Kennedy Onassis. She walks in the elevator with me. No one else, no entourage, no security, nothing. The doors close. I look at her hand go up and push the button for the floor she was going to. And I had a moment to think, do I talk to her? Do I say anything? And all I could think of how beautiful a woman she was. She must have been then in the late 50s or 60s, whatever it might be, but just a stunningly beautiful woman. And I just said to myself, this woman has gone through so much in her life. Thinking back to the assassination, raising the kids, and everything that she went through. I said, she needs a moment of silence, and let me not be the one to take away her elevator time. So the floor came to her floor. She got off and left. I stayed on. I never said a word to her, but I had a moment with the incredible, famous Jackie Kennedy Onassis. In the mid to late 80s, I found myself on the Eastern Airlines Eastern Shuttle, to and from Boston, to and from Washington. I was on a flight from Boston this one evening, and I sat in, like, back then you had open seating, similar to Southwest. So I sat in the seat, maybe the third row of the plane. And I'm coming back home tired after a bunch of meetings in Boston, and I look up in front of me, in the first row, I saw this person, a short man with whitish hair. I looked at the back of his head, and I took a peek around and said, geez, it looks like Walter Cronkite. People all around the plane were buzzing. Is that Walter Cronkite? Is that Walter Cronkite? They were all buzzing around. Is that him? I turned and said, I think it's him. So the plane lands, and in fact, as we're up in the air, I'm thinking, geez, if this plane goes down, they're going to say, Walter Cronkite and 130 other people passed away today in this plane crash, but luckily it didn't happen. So anyway, so we're walking off the plane. Walter Cronkite Mr. Cronkite is by himself. I walk over next to him and said, Mr. Cronkite, my name's Ron Baumbach. I'm pleased to meet you. It's a thrill and honor. And he started chatting with me. We had a lovely conversation all the way down the ramp to the luggage area. I left him. He went on his own, and I'm assuming he's going to meet an entourage of people. About 10 minutes later, I see him standing outside waiting for his ride, and there's no one there. He's all by just Walter Cronkite standing by himself. I offered him a ride. He said, no, they'll eventually come, and they did come, and he went off in the car and went off his merry way. So who were your childhood heroes and your adult heroes? We learned that they all put their pants on the same way. They're all the same as us. They're amazing memories we have of these people. But the more I think back and the older I get, the heroes in my mind have changed.